The New York Islanders have quit on themselves, quit on their coach, quit on the fans. This season is over. They embarrassed themselves in a 9-2 loss over the Rangers. We'll break down what it all means and where we go from here next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the New York Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today and talk a little Islanders hockey. Quite honestly, I just wish it was under better circumstances. We're going to discuss the Islanders' embarrassing 9-2 loss to the New York Rangers, talk about how this team appears to have quit on their coach, on their teammates, on the fans, and we'll preview this weekend's games against 2 big division rivals. It was ugly out there. On your own home ice against your biggest rival, the New York Islanders, with a admittedly 1% chance of making the playoffs coming into this game, went out and proved beyond the shadow of a doubt that they were not ready to play hockey. This game was an embarrassment from start to finish. The Islanders were not ready to play. It was 4-0 at the end of the first period. And I hate to even say it, but the score was closer than the game. Now, in the second period, the Islanders did play a little bit better, but they were down 5-0 before they even got on the board. And, giving up 9 goals, that ties the Rangers' all-time record for most goals scored against the New York Islanders. This team did not play defense. This team did not show up. And there was no physicality. There was no coordination between the players on the ice. There was no effort being shown, no desperation, no enthusiasm. This team played like they just didn't care. And the season was more or less over already, and I can handle losing. I can handle the Islanders losing every game left on their schedule because, quite honestly, it gives them a better chance at the draft lottery. And in the long run, that's probably better for this team. But I cannot and will not accept a complete lack of effort. Indifference is not acceptable. Incompetence may be, but indifference is not. And this team played like they were going through the motions. When you embarrass yourselves in front of your home fans, and by the end of the game, there were hardly any Islander fans left in the arena. It was all Ranger fans. When you don't hustle, when you don't hit, when you don't win 50-50 puck battles, when you don't cover anybody out there on the ice, you are not going to get a good result. And look, I could sit here and say, Marcus Hogberg, who started the game in net, looked bad. And he did. He didn't play a good game. But that wasn't the reason or the biggest reason the Islanders lost. How many odd man rushes did we see? How many rebounds and easy tap-ins did we see? Far, far too many. And, look, Hogberg and then Tristan Lennox made his NHL debut, played little less than 5 minutes of the third period. You can't blame the goalies. You can't praise them either. They were bad, but you can't blame the goalies for the absolute lack of discipline, the absolute lack of hockey sense, the lack of effort. I mean, I could go up and down the list of statistics in this game, but I am going to say this. The New York Islanders, I mean, where do you begin? Where do you begin? Bo Horvat, -5. Anders Lee, -5. And no shots on goal. Anders Lee, -5. No points. No shots on goal. No hits. Kyle Palmieri, -4. Adam Pelech, -5. He at least had an assist. Ryan Pollock, -4. You gotta give, who was out there really hustling? Mark Gatcomb had 6 hits. All of the Islanders' 6 defensemen combined had 5. I can handle bad hockey. I cannot handle, I don't care. The minimum salary in the NHL is roughly $750,000 a year. For $750,000 a year, you owe the fans who are paying a lot of money to watch this garbage an honest effort. And any Islander coach or player who dares to try to say, well, we didn't quit. Well, we didn't play that badly. Well, we bounced back after a really bad first period and we played better hockey in the second period. No, you stunk. You were bad. You just didn't care enough to put forth a minimal effort. You were going through the motions. Because as bad as this team has been at times this year, they're not this bad. This is a team in the muddy middle, and they played like a team. Look, I am old enough to remember the expansion Islanders and the expansion Washington Capitals, who won 8 games out of 80. That's the kind of game the Islanders played last night against the Rangers. 9-2. 9-2. The Mickey Mouse era New Jersey Devils, the Colorado Rockies, the Washington Capitals in their expansion year, the Cleveland Barons, the California Golden Seals, some of those teams that were just the worst years of the Quebec Nordique when they were out of the playoffs by American Thanksgiving. That's the style of hockey, the quality of hockey that we saw from this New York Islanders team in this game. And it is just not acceptable. You cannot go out there and put that kind of performance on the ice. And it wouldn't be, I mean, this is the second game in a row where defensively this team just gave no effort. You give up 7 goals to the Nashville Predators and 9 goals to the New York Rangers, 2 teams, no offense to them, who couldn't get out of their own way most of this season. And you make them look like the all-time great Edmonton Oilers or Islanders dynasty teams or Montreal Canadiens dynasty teams. You make them look like the greatest hockey team to ever lace up the skates? These players and this team should be ashamed of themselves. They should be embarrassed by what happened on the ice last night. And realistically, after watching that game, if they watched it, if they cared enough to watch it, ownership has to know that changes are needed up and down this organization, because the status quo on the ice, off the ice, is not going to cut it. This cannot continue. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We're going to have our GOAT and GOAT of the game, because there's no hero, okay? But we will break down a few more things from this game, and I'm going to make a big conclusion about something that needs to happen. We'll preview both of this weekend's games against the Flyers and the Devils, and for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a Swedish defenseman who was captain of the Islanders and was with the team throughout the 80s. Let's see if you can guess. No, was not captain, but was with the team throughout the 80s. Let's see if you can guess who this player who played on the last two Stanley Cup winning teams for the Islanders was. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you could even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. I am going to say this. And everydayers, if you know me, if you've been watching or listening to this show for a long time, for any length of time, you know I do not like to call for people's jobs. Most people are honest, hardworking. They have families. I don't like to ask for people to be fired. I don't do that lightly. I don't like to do it. But I'll tell you right now, the effort or lack thereof over the last two games, and really for large stretches of the season, but especially the last two games, I'm asking this question. I'm putting it out there. Have the New York Islanders quit on Patrick Roy? And look, I've made this comparison before, and I'm going to stand by it. I can't judge Patrick Roy's performance as coach based on what he's got to work with. It's like a gourmet chef being given McDonald's food and saying, make me a gourmet meal. It just, you don't have the ingredients you need to be a cup contender. This roster is very flawed. The injuries compounded it. This team is just the way it is right now, put together, not good enough. But part of the coach's job description is to have his team ready to play physically, emotionally, strategically. Can you honestly say that the Islanders were ready to play this game in any of those areas? They were not positionally sound. They were not enthusiastic and giving an honest, full game effort. They did not show up at the opening faceoff. Maybe they played well for the first 2 minutes of this game. Maybe. You have got to show more than that. This is not one of those situations where, and look, I know every team has an off night. Every team has games where they just don't play well. I get it. And the Islanders didn't play well against the Rangers, against the Predators. They appear to have quit. And it just bothers me. The fans cannot care more than the players. And, one thing about this team since Lou Lamoriello and then initially Barry Trotz took over, this team was always resilient. This team didn't quit. They would be losing a game 5-2, and they'd usually end up losing 5-4, or maybe they'd get a loser point if they lost in overtime, or occasionally they'd even come back and win. But they didn't quit. They didn't stop playing. The last couple of games, this team has stopped playing. And Patrick Roy has to prove that this team has not tuned him out for him to keep his job next season. And as far as Lou Lamoriello is concerned, it is past time for this roster to be changed significantly. If insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, then not making major changes this offseason is the very definition of insanity. You now have a team that has not won a playoff round in 4 years. The only way the Islanders make the playoffs now is if they win out. The Canadiens do not even get a loser point. And a whole bunch of other teams also, end up behind the Islanders. The Islanders' tragic number of points is 1. 1 overtime loss or loss by the Islanders, 1 point by the Canadiens, and there's no mathematical possibility of this team emerging as a playoff team. You can't bring back this core. And I'll go back to the trade deadline, and everydayers will remember because I said it at the time. And I've said it on social media since then and in emails to listeners and viewers. Once you traded Brock Nelson, and remember, Lou didn't even want to do that. But once you traded Brock Nelson, again, Lou's loyalty, and I put that in air quotes for those of you who are listening to the podcast, his loyalty said, I owe it to this team. I'm paraphrasing now. I owe it to this team to try to give them a chance to make the playoffs. No. Once you traded Brock Nelson, which was the right thing to do, you owed it to this team to do everything in your power to put the best team on the ice next year and to prepare this team for a brighter future. And that means getting younger, faster, and more skilled. It means acquiring picks and prospects, even if you only acquire them at the trade deadline and trade them in the offseason to get players or free up cap space and sign free agents if that's even possible. What you owe it to the team, what you owe the organization is to try to make things better next year, because this year, once you traded Brock Nelson, was realistically over. You could tell me, oh yeah, they were only 4 points back, but there were 7 teams at that point fighting for maybe 2 spots. And you lost your best goal scorer once you traded him away. And again, Lou wanted to keep him. Keeping Kyle Palmieri made no sense at that point after you let go of Brock Nelson. Not trading away other overpriced, underperforming veterans, or even veterans who are performing well but may never have as high a value as they'll have now, you should have been more active at the trade deadline. Lou Lamoriello either has to drastically change course this offseason, or ownership has to say, you know what, Lou, thanks for everything you've done for this organization. And you did a lot, especially when you first came aboard, but we need to go in another direction right now. And if you won't take us there, we have to get somebody who will. This was an embarrassment. This was an insult to people who paid hundreds of dollars to attend this hockey game. And if this is the status quo, don't use injuries as an excuse. Change, real change, significant change has to come to this organization before the puck drops again in October. And if it doesn't, then we're in for another year in the muddy middle, and we're going to see a heck of a lot of empty seats at the UBS Arena, because you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. It is time for change. It's past time for change. Hero of the game, the fact that this game is over. Go to the game. I could go down the whole list. Pellick, Pollock, the goalies. But it's the lack of effort by this team. The lack of fundamental hockey that they just didn't play. Things have to change, and they have to change quickly, because if it doesn't change soon, the retool becomes a rebuild, and the rebuild could take 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. What year is it of the Iser plan in Detroit? How many years has it been since Buffalo made the playoffs, or San Jose? You don't want to be the next team that does that. If you don't act soon, that's exactly what's going to happen. You could try to be the Capitals, who retooled on the fly last year and went from barely making the playoffs to possibly winning the President's Trophy. Or you could keep doing the same thing and end up stuck in the muddy middle indefinitely and slowly sink into the abyss. We've got more to get to on today's show. We are going to talk about both of this weekend's games. We'll have our Islanders' birthday of the day. Can this team get back on track? I hope so. We'll talk about that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found GameTime. GameTime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front. No surprises at checkout. You can grab last-minute seats for the last Islander home game and save big with their zone deals. Save up to 60% off by buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And you get views from your seat before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee, so you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. One more thing before we preview these two games. Tristan Lennox, rookie, made his NHL debut. I thought he should have started the third period. He did not. He was in for less than 5 minutes, and then Patrick Waugh pulled him and put Hogberg back in. Hogberg didn't get the job done. Again, it really wasn't the goalie's fault, although neither of them played particularly well. you should have let the kid finish the game. It was out of hand already, and there was no point in putting Hogberg back out there. But again, like I said, the game was over at that point. 2 games this weekend for the New York Islanders. I will preview them quickly. Saturday, it'll be the Islanders and the Flyers. That's a 12:30 Eastern time start in Philadelphia. The Flyers, well, they're behind the Islanders in the standings by 6 points. Flyers are 23rd in the league in goals scored, 29th in goals against. They fired John Tortorella earlier this year. Their power play is 30th. On the PK, they're 17th. Samuel Ersson is a solid goaltender. You have Travis Konechny and Matvei Michkov. You have some talent on this team, but realistically, not a heck of a lot of depth. They're coming off an 8-5 win over the Rangers, and they've actually won 4 of their last 5 games. So we'll see how this one plays out. The line combinations for the Flyers: Noah Cates, Tyson Forster, Bobby Brink is the top line. Sean Couturier, Matvei Michkov, and Travis Konechny is the second line. Ryan Poling, Jakob Pelletier, and Owen Tippett's the third line. Carson Dorwart, Nicholas Deslauriers, and Garnett Hathaway are the fourth trio. And then Nick Seeler and Travis Sanheim, the top defensive pair. Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, the second pair. And Igor Zamula and Emil Andre, that's the third pair. Your goalies are Ersson and Kolosov, Alexei Kolosov. Ryan Ellis on IR, Rasmus Ristolainen listed as out. Then on Sunday, the Islanders will face the New Jersey Devils. That's a 1 o'clock Eastern time start. That game, for some reason, is on TNT. Devils have clinched a playoff spot, although their 3-game winning streak was ended by the Boston Bruins. They will play on Friday against the Penguins, so the Islanders will be on a back-to-back, but the Devils will not be. Devils 18th in goals scored, 6th in goals against, 3rd on both the power play and the penalty kill. They have really improved this year. Their line combinations: Nico Hischier, Stefan Nason, Jesper Bratt, a very good top line, Dawson Mercer, Eric Koala, Timo Meyer, a solid second line, Cody Glass, Andre Palat, Daniel Sprong as the third trio, and then from left to right, Paul Cotter, Curtis Lazar, and Nathan Bastian are the fourth line. Luke Hughes, their best player, Brett Pesce, that's the top defense pair. Brian Demoulian and Jonathan Kavasevic, that's the second pair. Brendan Dillon and Seamus Casey are the third defense pair. And then your goalies, Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen. Jack Hughes out, Dougie Hamilton out, Jonas Siegenthaler on IR. Look, the important thing is I don't need the Islanders to win either of these games, quite honestly. Like I said, the season is more or less over as far as making the playoff goes. They may not even be in the playoff picture by the time they play Saturday. But you got to play with intensity, with purpose, with respect for yourselves, for your teammates, for the game, for the fans. They have to bounce back and at least accomplish that much in both of these games. No more 7, 8, 9 goals against. No more embarrassing performances. If they can do that much, winning is not as important as just playing respectable hockey. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day, and Saturday will be the 65th birthday of Thomas Jansson, the native of Falun, Sweden. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I can't say I'm an expert at Swedish. Second-round pick of the Islanders in 1979, joined the Islanders for the 81-82 season, was a part of the last 2 cup-winning teams, and stayed on the island until late in the 88-89 season, played 20 games for the Oilers, and then headed back to the Swedish Elite League to finish his career. 552 NHL games, 85 goals, 344 points, 482 penalty minutes, at 11 goals, 37 points in 80 playoff games, including, as I mentioned, 2 Stanley Cup rings with the Islanders, a solid offensive defenseman. One of his better games as an Islander, Islanders visiting the Igloo in Pittsburgh. Roland Melanson, the goalie for the Islanders. Roberto Romano, the goalie for Pittsburgh. And in this game, Islanders trailing 1-0 after the first period, our Islanders' birthday of the day. Tomas Janssen gets a goal on the power play with Greg Fox off for interference. Butch Goring with the assist. That ties it at 1. Then after the Penguins took a 2-1 lead, Janssen and John Tonelli set up Dennis Potvin for a power play goal. That ties the game at 2. With the game tied at 3, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Tomas Janssen scores his second of the game. Bob Bourne and Anders Kaller with the assist. And with 3.5 minutes left, the Islanders get the game winner. Islanders' birthday of the day, Tomas Janssen and Garth McGuigan set up John Tonelli for the game winner. Islanders go on to win it 5-4, but Tomas Janssen, 2 goals, 2 assists. He had 4 points on the day, a +2. He had 3 shots on goal, scored 1 on the power play, 1 at even strength. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I'm live tweeting during every Islanders home and road game, so join me for a little instant insight and analysis. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Everydayers, we're back on Monday. We'll have our key takeaways from both of this weekend's games and hopefully some more encouraging things to talk about. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.